while there's been $500,000 from the Northern Territory and $50,000 from the ACT. The Tasmanian Premier is also encouraging people to give, saying his state will match any Rotary donations up to $250,000. People across the country can help by donating to the Flood Relief Appeal online at www.qld.gov.au/floods. That's www.qld.gov.au/floods. While pledges can also be made at any of the major banks and Coles supermarkets. Matt Snelson joins us next on this Win News Flood Crisis Special.
Yes, Jeff, I've got the latest on which New South Wales towns are under threat and the State Emergency Service on standby as water crosses the border. Tenterfield is so far bearing the brunt of the wild weather in New South Wales. Locals say they're seeing the worst flooding to hit the Shire in more than half a century.
The Tenterfield Weather Rock didn't predict this. Overnight, the local creek became a raging river, taking with it anything in its path.
We have now got the town of Tenterfield not only cut into two, but that town is also now isolated.
Rural properties are being evacuated, while in town 2,700 residents are cut off, with access roads either flooded or damaged. There's been half a dozen rescues, including one involving 20 people trying to cross floodwater. And Tenterfield isn't the only town in trouble.
We have Ewingar that's cut off, and there's around about 400 people live up in Ewingar area. So in the next day or two we'll be doing food drops into them.
To the north at Tabulum, properties have become islands as the Clarence River consumes roads. The only way in or out for many is by boat, with the SES forced to taxi volunteers home. The swollen river is flooding crops and threatening homes and livestock.
You walk out our place, you're up to here in water. You are up to here in water, so very scared.
And it's not over for Tabulum just yet. While the river did drop throughout the day, more rain has fallen in the upper catchments, and the river is expected to rise again from about 7 tonight. Meantime, Kyogle north of Casino seems to have had a lucky escape. Stock was returning to business this morning after being removed yesterday. The river peaked at 13.4 metres, causing just minor flooding.
I reckon we were very lucky. When you see the amount of water that has fallen around the Kyogle area, you know, when you take the other poor people, we've had nothing.
Further south, Grafton is on alert with the swollen Clarence River expected to peak there tomorrow morning, isolating some communities. It follows a massive 220 millimetres of rain falling in the region in the past 48 hours.
A fun afternoon for sightseers, a tense time for authorities. By 2 o'clock, the Clarence River at Grafton had swelled to 6.12 metres, and the SES is tentatively predicting a peak of 7 metres at 9 a.m. But given the levee is a metre higher again, the Mayor believes the town is well prepared.
Good news is that the river will be contained within the levee systems of Grafton, Ulmarra, Maclean and also at Yamba and Iluka.
The bad news is some local roads and communities are still expected to be inundated and isolated for days. The evacuation of vulnerable residents has begun.
We have had a retirement home or nursing home in the Ulmarra area have evacuated, which is part of their plans.
Just before 5 this afternoon, rising floodwaters forced the closure of the Pacific Highway at Shark Creek near Tynedale. The section of the highway had already been shut down for 2 hours, so a 500 head of cattle could be moved to higher ground. To the south, the town of Bellingen on the mid-north coast has been cut in two, much to the surprise of the SES.
The rain came in very heavy overnight, which pushed our rivers up and over the banks, which we thought we were going to get away with it fairly easy.
At Repton, the rising tide forced the evacuation of the caravan park.
While the swollen Bellinger River is frustrating for many, the general consensus is it's nothing compared to Queensland.
We've seen some of the reports today from what's happened at Toowoomba. It's incredible.
We're lucky that we haven't got what they got. Yeah, that's horrific, isn't it?
The emergency response to the New South Wales crisis is being coordinated at the SES headquarters, hundreds of kilometres away from the disaster zone. Tonight we take you inside the communications centre in Wollongong on the state's south coast, or the New South Wales south coast rather. SES volunteers have been working around the clock. They've taken more than 400 calls for help. Acting as the nerve centre for the relief and rescue operations, staff are in regular contact with the Weather Bureau and emergency authorities in the flood-affected areas. Volunteers are on standby to help the victims.
We use the resources of the State Emergency Service across the whole state to support other regions and other areas of the state as required. So we are currently moving people into areas such as Moree, Boggabilla, Lismore, Grafton and a number of other locations around the state.
People requiring emergency assistance should call the State Emergency Service on 132 500. Just recapping, there are 9 dead and nearly 60 people still missing. For those worried about loved ones and relatives, there is a number you can call for information. An assistance line has been established. That number is 1300 993 191, 1300 993 191. And Jeff, that is the latest on the situation in New South Wales.
Matt, thank you. It doesn't get any better, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't.
Thanks, Matt. Stay with us after the break. We check all the weather conditions that are still to come. With the latest on the weather situation in Queensland, I'm joined now by Peter Byrne. And Peter, what caused yesterday's deluge and what else can we expect?
Well, this whole scenario panned out about last Thursday or Friday. Now, the whole region of Queensland is absolutely saturated, but we had this upper atmospheric low, that's a cyclonic circulation in the upper levels of the atmosphere, very cold aloft. So that made the atmosphere very, very unstable. That moved north up over central Queensland, off the coast, then back over central Queensland on the weekend. So the good news is maybe for the next 12 to 18 hours the possibility of further heavy to flood falls in the southeast coast and the Darling Downs, and then it should taper off quite nicely to just showers for Wednesday. So that's the good news.
With a look what the rest of the country can expect in the coming days, here's the Weather Channel's Dick Whittaker.
Well, the lead up to this was, of course, the extremely wet spring and early part of summer that saturated the catchments across southeastern Queensland. We're looking at further heavy rain this afternoon and tonight, but we think during Wednesday the actual rain activity will start to ease off and break up into showers. But having said that, of course, the damage has already been done. The situation for eastern Australia remains very, very volatile. We're expecting quite a significant rain event to move across Tasmania, Victoria, New South Wales and southern Queensland once again later this week. So further rain anticipated, and also it looks as though we have a tropical low off the Western Australian coast may develop into a cyclone during this time. So situation right across the country, extremely volatile.
Dick Whittaker from the Weather Channel. There are thousands of people affected by this disaster, many of whom have lost everything, including their livelihoods. For those wishing to help, please do so. It could be months before life returns to normal for those in flood-ravaged areas. Dig deep and donate to the Queensland Premier's Flood Relief Appeal by going to that website, which is www.qld.gov.au/floods. You can also donate to the appeal at any major bank or Coles supermarket. And that is the Wind News Flood Crisis Special for Tuesday, the 11th of January. Stay with Wind throughout the night for more updates. I'm Jeff Phillips. Thanks for watching. Good night.
This has been a Win News presentation from Win Television, Australia's largest commercial television network.